where then President Marcos hastily took his last oath of office in 1986 before departing for exile to Honolulu in Hawaii in the heels of the EDSA People Power Revolution. We thank the Office of the President for graciously accommodating us in this historic venue, if only for the fact that our theme, tipping the balance in favor of human rights and access to justice, is inspired by the heroism of the countless women and men who fought and stood for freedom, democracy, and human rights in an otherwise authoritarian state.
So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask everyone to please rise as we are led by the Office of the President Chorale in a doxology as well as in the... Let us all be seated. Thank you very much, the Office of the President Coral. Let's give them a warm round of applause. They are the pride of the Office of the President, and by the way, they are accepting bookings, weddings, Professor, weddings, birthdays, liturgical celebrations, including funerals. Yes. You can contact me at my office for the proper processing of the office orders.
I'm going to make a list of those later on.
Okay. So for now, we shall. By the way, some introductions are in order before we introduce our friends. No, I am Nonoy Katura. I'm with the Presidential Human Rights Committee Secretariat, and my friend.
I'm Byron Bukar, member of the Human Rights Victims Claims Board.
So Attorney Byron, it's good that we share the stage today. Attorney Byron and I have been working together since our OPCAT working group days, no, for the optional protocol for the Convention Against Torture. So it's a good that we are together here under a very calm circumstance. Yes. Okay. So let's proceed to introducing some of our friends. We will be introducing them by tranches since we will be getting the list. But for now, is this going to be edited in the final? I think it's going to be edited.
I hope so. Yes.
Okay. There's actually a big problem here. No, they gave us a script without specifying who will do the talking in which part. So we will try to figure things out as we move along. But perhaps at this time we can do the tango. Okay. So yes. Later on, we will be getting the list of our friends.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be acknowledging the guests as we go along.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So let's proceed. Last February 25 in 2013, the President signed into law Republic Act 10368, or the Martial Law Victims Recognition and Reparation Act. This was the high point of more than 2 decades of popular struggle for the establishment of a national mechanism to afford victims and survivors of martial law a due measure of justice. Republic Act 10368 makes the Philippines the first country in Asia to recognize its moral and legal obligations in regard to the human rights violations experienced by thousands upon thousands of Filipinos under the Marcos dictatorship, a true watershed moment in history.
This year, the reparations process began in earnest with the opening of a 6-month period for filing of claims. While it is the Human Rights Victims Claims Board that spearheads the entire process in accordance with law, the Commission on Human Rights ensures that the greatest numbers of potential martial law heroes are able to access the process. And of course, our friends from the civil society organizations, especially the human rights community.
Now, CHR's, the Commission on Human Rights interest is as simple but deep. A successful implementation of Republic Act 10368 will send a very powerful signal to the state and its governance and security apparatus. Violating your people's rights does not pay. Okay. To discuss it. Okay. To discuss this further.
To discuss this further, let us all welcome to share with us 50,000 Reasons to End Impunity, the chairperson of the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines, Honorable Loretta Ann P. Rosales.
Thank you. You see how ambassadors are able to function effectively. Thank you very much. In behalf of the Commission on Human Rights, I would like to express our deep appreciation for the participation of everybody here celebrating International Human Rights Day. Of course, it was supposed to be on December 10, but we decided to postpone it and schedule it for today, a week after this was in collaboration with the Office of the President's Presidential Human Rights Committee, when we felt that the urgent issue was to address the victims of Ruby, or how do they say it in the international term? Hagupit, no? Typhoon Hagupit. I don't know why we kept on calling it Ruby when for the first time in international language they were using our language, Hagupit. So it was Typhoon Hagupit. Okay, but since the two MCs, Byron Bocar and Yusek Katura, failed to acknowledge you, I feel like it is my responsibility to do the same thing now, no? Now, this is not according to rank, it is just according to how they were able to do it, who came first. And of course, here you have Brito Cristina Garcia from the Spanish Embassy, ACID. Where's Cristina? There you are. And Buan Robles Jennifer from the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands, okay. Facio John, Embassy of the United States of America. I think you belong to the Human Rights Office, right? Okay. Mustafa Akmal Che, Embassy of Malaysia. Thank you for coming. And of course, our dear friend Ivo Sieber, who knows his functions, you know, during this entire morning celebration. Embassy of the Swiss Confederation. Actually, he plays a very important role in this entire process. Tagliaferri Alfonso, Embassy of Italy. He was actually the first who came here, and we had a good talk to each other. And of course, our dear friend again, Saragosi Vicente, said yes. There you are. From the Spanish Embassy, again, ACID. We have now, do we have anybody from the EP Just? They're still coming, okay. We have NGOs, we have ESCR Asia, of course, Tichon. Where is Tichon? She was with me also in the caravan last night under rain, you know, traveling through and discussing everything with the fisher folk, Claimants 1081, Martial Law Files Project, the, UG Maris? UG means underground. Anybody underground around here? Hope for the Youth Foundation, and then of course government agencies, Department DTI of Trade and Industry, the Philippine National Police, led by the Human Rights Affairs Office, Chief Superintendent Biernes, where is he? There he was, there you are, thank you. He actually played a very important role in the caravan last night. He was co-MC with Director Elsie in a very successful discussion of human rights with all sectors included, and the signing of the National Monitoring Mechanism, no? With Yusek Katura. We signed the National Monitoring Mechanism, and everything is now officially in place for the implementation of the National Monitoring Mechanism involving all sectors in monitoring human rights violations, both civil and political rights, focus on civil and political rights, and also economic, social, and cultural rights as they relate to the civil and political rights violations. Then we have the Philippine Marines here. They were also there last night in the caravan. The local government units, well, in this case, I'd like to pay close attention to a favorite mayor. We're going to do the rock and roll program in his town in Ginayangan, Mayor Cesar Isaac. There he is. Would you like to stand, sir? Because I want them to get to know who you are in particular. He got special attention because Cesar Isaac went out of his way to mobilize all the resources under his command, civil society organizations, the resources of the local municipality, the communities, the schools, even the schools, PUP and Lopez, even the other mayors, people from the other surrounding towns, to help in the claims that took place, how many, hundreds upon hundreds of claims, no, that took place in your town. And Chair Lina Sarmiento over there was quite busy addressing all of these claims. It was one of the first towns that responded positively to the victims of human rights violations. And of course, this could not have been made possible without the family of the Tañadas. This belongs to the District 4, and Congressman Erin Tañada, I'd like you to please stand up for them to be recognized. Because Erin, my dear colleague Erin, was with me in the House of Representatives, and it was Erin and I and several others, including the President of the Philippines, you know, he who was also with the Committee on Human Rights, who was actually very, very steadfast in making sure that this bill would be passed into law. So we have the DENR too. She came around. There she is. Yeah. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for representing the Department of the DENR. And then the Philippine Army, Colonel Motril is here, the Human Rights Affairs Officer. Thank you, sir. The Philippine Air Force. Yes, there he is, Ronan. Thank you. And then, of course, the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Well, that's you too. Colonel Motril takes care of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. PDEA, is PDEA represented here? PDEA? Oh, it's not here now, but they were in the caravan together with us yesterday with the BJMP. Is the BJMP here? And the BJMP and the PDEA and the PNP and the CHR were busy discussing in the caravan how we could support the DOJ with the wonderful work that they did in capturing 19 drug lords who were actually doing a lot of profitable business while being imprisoned in Bilibid prison. Believe it or not, it happened in Bilibid prison, and only in Bilibid, only in the Philippines. Maybe not, no, maybe not. Maybe somewhere else. And then we also have PUP. Do we have the School of PUP? There they are. Thank you for coming. And then the DSWD. Yes, our dear, dear friends from the DSWD. They're our dearest friends, especially with IDP purposes. They're always there, come rain or shine. And of course, the Memorial Commission, members of the Memorial Commission. Yoli Ang, where are you? You're somewhere here. There she is. Oh, Yoli Ong. You're not a relative of Ramon Ang, huh? So I thought wrongly. I suspected you were somehow a relative of Ramon Ang. So it's Yoli Ong, not Yoli Ang. And the Claims Board, of course, chaired Chair Lina. Yeah, stand up, Chair Lina, yeah. And then the Claims Board, because they were the ones that did wonderful work during the whole time of the Claims Board, and they have another 6 months. They were able to make more than 50,000, so there are more than 50,000 reasons to end impunity. And guess what? There's another 6 months. So there's another 50,000 that possibly come our way. It's going to be a big task for them, but we should give them all the support. Now that I've done what Byron and Nonoy were supposed to do, can I now go into my speech? You know, this Ulat sa Bayan shall be the last Ulat that shall be delivered by the Commission on Human Rights under the 4th Commission on the 10th of December. By the way, the 4th Commission is fully represented here. We have Commissioner Mamawag, we have Commissioner Bird, there he is. Is Mavic around? Wala pa, on her way. Okay, she's on her way. So it's our last Ulat sa Bayan. And of course, on the 10th of December or the 17th of December, International Human Rights Day. The first Ulat was delivered here too in Malacañang. If you remember, some of you from the embassy, from the civil society groups were here. And we gave the commitment to strengthen its capacity to protect the citizens nationwide against extrajudicial killings, torture, and enforced disappearances that increased significantly in the past administration of former President Gloria Arroyo. The former president, oh, there it is, some of the past, things that had happened. I think this has to do with the Ampatuan massacre. The former president adopted a counterinsurgency policy that underscored a militarist approach, resulting in increased political killings, torture, and abduction. Torture, in particular, was made possible through illegal arrests and illegal detention, unlawful practices that were tolerated in the name of counterinsurgency. Thus, President Aquino's order for the immediate release of Morong 43, suspected activists who were illegally arrested and detained, received warm applause and wide acceptance from the public. The release delivered a strong statement from the President that illegal arrests and illegal detention were not to be tolerated under his watch. The creation of human rights offices administered by human rights officers from national office down to the town police stations and military battalions units bolstered the policy initiative to reform the security sector through a human rights-based approach in policing and military engagements. The effort to combat insurgency was reoriented towards a holistic, all-nation approach to get the different aspects of governance closer and within reach of rural dwellings in both upland and coastal villages. Today, 4 years after the celebration of human rights in the palace, citizens still complain of insecurity and fear within their communities against frequent abuse of authority from law enforcers that include local government officials, prison authorities like Bilibid, the police, and the military. While abductions are much reduced from the past, they still remain a threat. The same holds true for arbitrary killings that limit themselves not only to critics of government, but increasingly to petty crime offenders, many of them involving minors and street children. Under conditions of natural and conflict-driven disasters resulting in massive internal displacement, human trafficking, and sexual abuse of women and children continue to remain a major source of human rights violations. Meanwhile, the problem of torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment that persists reflects in the inability of higher authorities to discipline the rank and file in daily police operations. The same holds true with school authorities, both in security and civilian campuses. There are still a number who are unable to protect their students against hazing activities that occasionally result in death. The gap, therefore, between human rights-based policies and actual operations on the ground remains a gawking chasm that mocks each and every one of us, duty bearers, unless we are able to put our foot down and assert our collective and political will to effectively combat impunity and cultivate a culture of human rights in every nook and corner of governance. This political will must be vertical and horizontal. It must start from the highest levels of governance and assert itself down to the level of barangay, spreading out horizontally to 42,000 villages. They must bring together government, school, church, security sector, and community in coordinative and concrete plans of action that translate human rights-based policies and programs from levels of appreciation to levels of actual and effective implementation. Republic Act 10368 is one such human rights law that is currently being implemented. It marks a major and historical breakthrough that involves the participation of all sectors of governance to give recognition and reparation to close to 50,000 victims of human rights violations under the dictatorial rule of the late President Ferdinand E. Marcos. What particular significance does this piece of legislation hold at this transitional period of our development as a fledgling freedom-loving nation seeking to strengthen our weak institutions of democratic rule? This historical law that now gives recognition and reparation to thousands upon thousands of victims and survivors of martial rule is the first of its kind in Asia and the developing world. For the first time, the Philippine state has claimed responsibility and accountability for the gross human rights violations committed against its people in the dark years of one-man rule under Ferdinand E. Marcos. With a reparation law now being implemented, the Philippine government is gradually winning the confidence of the people to trust in its ability to restore to them their lost human dignity, to give them a measure of justice, long deprived them across decades of displacement, deprivation, and dehumanization. While we speak among individuals and communities across the land, while we speak of 50,000 today, there are perhaps 50,000 more waiting to be listened to in claiming the right to restorative justice through reparation. Drawing our lessons from the pain of the past through a database of evidence, as we record the sufferings of each individual, each family, and each community across the nation, we collect their experiences, organize, digitize, and archive these in a database of evidence to be made known to the public through a registry of books, through oral history, through a history of songs and music, poetry and literature. A national narrative shall evolve to make us understand why we are what we are today and help us draw our lessons from the pain of the past in charting our children's future. Our schools and institutions of learning shall have opportunity to work together and institutionalize a movement of culture and learning to dig into this painful past and magnify in proud perspective the stories of heroism and struggle by those who inspired us and kept the light burning in the dark days of dictatorship. This cultural movement in schools and communities shall be encouraged and supported by local governments through peace and order councils that can pave the way for healing and reconciliation anchored in justice and human rights. Looking back and moving forward with international solidarity partners. In the international community, Republic Act 10368 delivers a strong statement to victims and survivors of despotic rule as they too can organize and file their claims in similar fashion, while rising democratic governments evolved from past tyrannies can help restore justice to their citizens through rights and justice reparation laws. Republic Act 10368 has in fact drawn inspiration from the historical judgment of the Hawaii District Court, which awarded $1.9 billion in exemplary and compensatory damages to the 9,539 martial law victims victims under Ferdinand Marcos from 1972 to 1986. This recognition of the class suit filed by the victims through the initiative of lead counsel Robert Swift and his partner Rod Domingo is legislated in law through Section 17, Chapter 3 of the Act entitled Conclusive Presumption that one is an HRVV under this Act. And I quote, "The claimants in the class suit and direct action plaintiffs in the human rights litigation against the estate of Ferdinand E. Marcos in the U.S. Federal District Court of Honolulu, Hawaii, wherein a favorable judgment has been rendered, shall be extended the conclusive presumption that they are human rights victims, violations victims." The judgment has in fact been implemented twice in the distribution of $1,000 each to class suit claimants in 2012 and in 2014. I requested for Rod Domingo to be invited here. Is he around? He is particularly ill. Of course, Bob Swift is in the United States, but he's one of the foremost lawyers, class suit lawyers, American lawyers of the United States, and he has given us, much pride in the way that he has committed himself to working. I'd like the U.S. Embassy to know this. Meanwhile, the ambassador of Switzerland admits that the full implementation of Republic Act 10368 symbolizes the completion of due process, where stolen millions of dollars by the dictator Ferdinand E. Marcos has been brought back to the Filipino people through a ruling of the Federal Supreme Court of Switzerland and declared ill-gotten wealth by the Philippine Supreme Court on 15 July 2003. So you see the Supreme Court of Switzerland and the Supreme Court of the Philippines participating actively in the adoption of this law that we are implementing today. $200 million of 10 billion pesos, or 560 of the $618 million, which is estimated as 35 million, from the National Treasury is now legislated by this law for distribution. This morning, Republic Act 10368 shall be presented before you by various stakeholders, not solely in celebration of human rights, but more importantly, to help us understand a little better today's problems on human rights by digging into our past. The lessons we learn together can help pave the way to a better comprehension of ourselves, our limitations, our biases, our obstacles, our hopes, and our aspirations. With this understanding, it becomes easier to move forward. This message that we deliver this morning shall find itself reaching out to the cities and towns and barangays nationwide through the people's organizations, through the provincial, POCs, Peace and Order Councils, from the regional level to the provincial level to the town level and municipal level. We are having a close collaboration with the DILG, and we're having this adopted into a resolution so that together we can actually get the LGUs to work actively in this campaign. No longer do we satisfy ourselves with just passively listening to a vision that speaks of matuwid na daan. Rather, we must, all of us, be actively involved in the collective effort. Ituwid ang daan. And every step of the process of righting the wrong must be guided by the lens of human rights in every way and all the way. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Isa na tayo. Sige. Sige na.
Ako na to.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson Rosales. That was a highly inspirational message.
Yeah.
I think the message was, believe it or not, there should be rule of law, justice without favor, and respect for human rights for all and for always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And you know what, Attorney Bai, every time Chair ETA delivers a message of this sort, we in the government usually are very keen on identifying which are the gaps and challenges. Yeah, so in fact, we are already used to sometimes covering ourselves behind some of the audience just to make sure that, anyway, what is good about this is that whenever she takes up these kinds of challenges for us, it's really a wake-up call for everyone, you know, because of the mandate of the Commission on Human Rights. And we are also very thankful that she really was very religious to her script. You can just imagine if she did not. No, we would be ending at about 11:45. No, that's a joke. Thank you very much.
And she took up our task,
she did.
which we
Yes.
failed to do earlier.
So that's how.
So thank you for that
That's how
as well.
passionate she is.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So, as mentioned earlier, the Human Rights Victims Claims Board is the agency mandated to implement the recognition and reparations aspects of Republic Act 10368. To give us a status report on this unprecedented process, let us all welcome Human Rights Victims Claims Board Chairperson Lina C. Sarmiento.
Our keynote speaker for this morning, Deputy Executive Secretary Teofilo Pilando Jr., representing the Executive Secretary, Chairperson Loretta Ann Rosales, and other commissioners of the Commission on Human Rights, His Excellency Ambassador Ivo Seaver, and other members of the Diplomatic Corps, board members of the Human Rights Victims Claims Board and staff who came with me today to this momentous event, our distinguished colleagues in public service, civil society organizations, members of the different youth organizations, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant day to all of you. It has been almost a year since the Human Rights Victims Claims Board has organized and ventured on the less traveled path of the reparation and recognition process. We are now in the process of appreciating and adjudicating the stories of heroism and sacrifices of the Filipinos during the dark days of martial law. I wish to recognize the board members of the Human Rights Victims Claims Board who share with me every bit of anxiety and tinge of excitement that our mandate has given us. Remember, we only have 2 years to accomplish our task. Our sunset is scheduled on May 12, 2016. While the task seems daunting, we take everything in stride with a clear grasp of the bigger context and the challenges that lie ahead. When justice is almost impossible, a ray of hope is visible to tilt the balance of justice in favor of the dignity and honor of the human rights victims. These words, marking the beginning of our audiovisual presentations, which we will later show, we have prepared for you today, meant everything that the Human Rights Victims Claims Board is, and we are confident that we will do our best to be the ray of hope for human rights victims in the best and legally possible way. We would also like to express our sincerest gratitude to all our partners who supported us in the intake operations. Of course, our number one institutional partner, the Commission on Human Rights, the Public Attorney's Office, and the college law schools like the University of the Philippines and Ateneo Human Rights Center and the Office of the Legal Aid. The Ateneo University College of Law encouraged its students to donate 1 day of their semester break to help victims of martial law. the Philippine National Police and the Armed Forces of the Philippines for helping us in our mobile intake caravans, the National Telecommunications Commission, which issued a memorandum to all the service providers for information campaign, the Department of Foreign Affairs for helping us in the intake of overseas claimants, Department of Interior and Local Government, and the League of Municipalities of the Philippines. The Presidential Communications Operation Office, and of course, the Embassy of Switzerland in Manila for helping us with our information campaign. Of course, we would also like to thank the authors of the law who helped us prior to the formulation of our implementing rules and regulations, and one of them is here, Congressman Erin Tanyada. Thank you, sir. We know that you will continue to be our partners in our future undertakings towards ensuring that justice be realized by the heroes of martial law. Our journey has just begun. So without further ado, please watch our presentation on the current status of the reparation and recognition process. Thank you very much, and good day to everyone.
When justice is almost impossible, a ray of hope is visible to tilt the balance of justice in favor of the dignity and honor of human rights victims. The Philippine government confronts its dark past by healing the wounds brought to the victims of martial law. The Human Rights Victims Claims Board is the newly created bastion of transitional justice, formed by Republic Act No. 10368, otherwise known as the Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013. Comprised of a chairperson and 8 board members, they took their oath of office on February 14, 2014. Just weeks after its organization and rigorous preparation, the board organized its team of less than 30 personnel and initiated intake operations on May 12, 2014. Responses have been overwhelming. The Human Rights Victims Claims Board Central Office at UP Diliman catered to an average of 120 cases per day. Intake operations resulted of a total of 14,258 claims. Within the first month of operations, the agency also launched its intake caravans. Teams of encoders, paralegals, and lawyers traveled to Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao to bring the service closer to the people. With an average intake of 170 applications per day, these caravans accepted a total of 22,383 claims. Regional desks were likewise established in cooperation with Commission on Human Rights. These regional desks were able to accommodate a total of 10,177 applications. Claimants residing overseas were also able to file their claims with the help of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Well-known martial law adversaries filed their claims and submitted themselves to the intake process. Expected a modest intake of 20,000 to 30,000 applications, but after 6 months of operations, it received a total of 46,818 claims. The success of the intake process was made possible through the help of various agencies that took part in the information dissemination, legal aid, and assistance to claimants. The Human Rights Victims Claims Board is extremely in-depth to the Commission on Human Rights, the Public Attorney's Office, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, to various law schools, the local government units and the League of Municipalities of the Philippines, the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Philippine National Police, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the National Telecommunications Commission, the Presidential Communications and Operations Office, the Department of Interior and Local Government, CSOs, the KBP, and the Swiss Embassy in Manila for their earnest support and assistance. Now, the board is faced with more meticulous tasks of evaluating, investigating, and adjudicating almost 47,000 cases. Composed of 3 divisions, the board will process approximately 170 cases each day. That's 56 cases per division per day. Distribution of the monetary reparation is expected to be made in February of 2016. More importantly, recognition of the heroism and sacrifices of human rights victims will be immortalized by enshrining their names in a roll of human rights victims to be prepared by the board. A memorial commission will then ensure the preservation of the roll in a museum established to honor the human rights victims who suffered during the Marcos regime. The roll shall further be made available to government agencies and the public in order to contribute in the prevention of human rights abuses and to encourage reforms toward ending impunity. The Philippines once again makes its mark in the globe as it takes justice one step closer to human rights victims. The Human Rights Victims Claims Board is proud to be leading this endeavor and will be persistently working to deliver results and live up to its mandate.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Chairman Lina, for that very enriching and comprehensive presentation with the AVP to boot. No? And by the way, I still I cannot overemphasize that the fact that Chairperson Lina has really set a milestone with regards to human rights promotion and protection, especially in the ranks of our police. No? So I think she can even be referred to as the mother of the PNP HRAO. No? Along came the different fathers, of course. No? And not to mention that she still holds the track record for the highest ranking Lady General. Lady General, para oxymoron na. Lady General, yes. But, you know, Attorney Bay, come to think of it, those who actually hold the reins in human rights promotion in the country are women.
That's right.
Women, the chair. So sometimes it's really quite confusing when people tell us that, you know, in the Philippines, there seems to be a lot of violations of women's rights. And they will tell them, well, how can that be? Anyway, when I get home, I'll try to ask my wife what she thinks about this.
Okay, so friends, Republic Act 10368 is not just about recognition and reparations. What completes the picture actually from a human rights-based access to justice viewpoint is memorialization.
Memorialization. Apparently I wasn't able to memorize this part.
Yes, so we have to memorize
Yes,
it.
okay. So let me. So Republic Act 10368 directs the creation of a memorial commission that would take charge of the memorial, museum, library, and compendium in honor of the human rights violations victims and survivors. Memorialization is an integral part of transitional justice. Now, as shown in Chair Eta's CHR Martial Law Oral History Project Sampler, individual voices are a powerful but often overlooked component of the national narrative.
And so, friends, to discuss the salient points of the great memorialization project under Republic Act 10368, let us welcome on stage a distinguished panel of speakers. First of all, we have retired Director of the National Archives of the Philippines. Friends, we give you Dr. Renato Medua.
Thank you, Attorney Byron and Yusek Katura, for a very kind introduction. Our Executive Director is now in Davao, so he could not attend this occasion. But I'll try my best to deliver the message on archiving. You see, the claims board is interrelated with documentation of the records of the martial law files. And in documentation of those files, it's very important for us to know the importance why we document and keep those records. And the task is, this morning is about archiving, while the operator is still preparing for the visual aid. Okay. Since I am retired, the visual aid also is trying to, yeah. Archiving is within the context of the Republic Act 10368, which states us okay. Mag-retire na rin siguro yung aking visual aid. Okay. According to Article 4, okay, the next slide, please. Okay, the mandate of CHR, Chapter 4, Section 27, which is Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act. The Victims Memorial Commission is created a commission to be known as the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission. Hereinafter referred to as a commission primarily for the establishment, restoration, preservation, and conservation of memorial, museum, library, compendium in honor of the CHR VVs during the Marcos regime. Okay, you will note that archiving is very important in CHR. That's why there is a concept of restoration for us to give protection, preservation, and conserve those records, which is very important in the practice of documentation of all the records important in the turn of the history of the country. Okay. Okay. Actually, this project, the archiving project, was initially launched during the Martial Law Files project in partnership with United Nations Development Program. Okay, and under the Human Rights Commission, the Martial Law Files project began its operation. So the funding actually came from the community of the Switzerland Embassy and the Swiss Peace Foundation. Of course, I'm very thankful for being part of this noble task in preservation, conservation of the records of the martial law files. And along with that project, there are many stakeholders workshops undertaken, of course, funded and hosted by different countries, which is also related to human rights violation. And the National Archives of the Philippines, in its part, in archiving documentation of the records of the martial law, give technical assistance as support in all the record-keeping requirements of the Martial Law Files project. Okay, the goals of the project is to have a survey design. It is very important for us before going on any project is to have planning. So in delivering a survey design, the Martial Law Files project was able to make a form that will give us information as to what are the most needed, who are the most needy persons to be given reparations. Okay? And then after that, an inventory forms, which is the listing of all the records holdings of the agency. And then set up training modules for those people involved in record keeping and archiving the Marshal of Files project. And then survey output, those are the result that as a result of the survey design that we have given to the subject, as will be part of those information given to regions and a significant input to the Memorial Commission. You can see the Memorial Commission has now established its own board, but the Marshal of Files project had already make initial steps as an input to their collections, and that's archiving, inventory, disposition schedule, training, and record keeping, and setting up a separate archives for the Commission. Okay. Okay, another objective is to fix and upgrade records and archives management practices by way of conducting training on basic records management, review the status of collection, what are the quality and conservation practices on those collections, enhance service delivery, establish records inventory, record series based, provenance and original order, establish records disposition schedule, and setting up an archive, as I mentioned earlier. What is most important here, of course, is the first and foremost is the inventory. So when we say inventory, it is a listing of all the records holdings of the Commission, and with that inventory, we will find out the life of the records that we're going to keep. And what are those, what are the restrictions provided? It will answer the question, does the record have access, does the public have access to those records or not? Okay. Establish records distribution schedule. Of course, the RDS of the Marshal of Files are considered to be permanent in nature. So they will no more have destruction because of the value of the records that brings about an illicit national level of consciousness. So those are the significant points in inventory. And then I'm glad to inform that the MLFP, or Marshal of Files Project, through cooperation with CHR and UNDP and other related agencies, have finally released a registry book which is called the Marshal of Files Research and Documentation Book. So with this Marshal of Files registry book, we will find out the documentation to be validated, and of course, as a source of information not only of the present generation but also the future generation. Okay, next. Medyo maliit, no? Hindi makita. Within that the registry book, it will tell the control number, the collection, the type of records, the creator of collection. Okay, the CHR has already its organic records, which is in its custody, and yet it is waiting for other agencies to submit their files. Of course, to its mandate, the CHR will be able, to the Memorial Commission, we will be able to have in its custody important violation records of human rights victims violations that will form as an input in shaping up future generations through information and education. Okay, date of acquisition, inclusive period. Within the period, Of course, the inclusive period is 1972 to 1986. But it will not limit to that inclusive period because as we go along, collection and documenting all those records, it will maybe go beyond that inclusive period. Okay, the type of acquisition may be donation, transfer. In foreign countries, they could purchase records of interest. Okay, type of media, it may be paper-based, it may be microfilm, digitized copy, or other form of records. Okay, physical condition is very important because it will be a basis for repair, preservation, and conservation of the records. And then the storage location, where we will find records without going directly to that place. Okay? Okay. So, I think I have said enough substantially. So in behalf of the Executive Director of National Archives, thank you very much for inviting me. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Medua. Thank you for giving us a run-through of the archiving process. And our apologies for this technical glitch. For a while there, I thought the ghost of Marcos has come back to haunt us. So anyway, next to do a presentation on human rights curriculum development, I would like to call on Ms. Zoraida Rangiris of the Commission on Higher Education.
Good morning. I'm from the Department of Education. The Department of Education recognizes the importance of human rights. That is why we have integrated human rights education in basic education and now with the K-12 program. Because we believe it is imperative to instill in the minds of young children the concepts and principles of human rights. With the enactment of Republic Act 10368, the department was given a mandate in a more concrete authority to enhance its instructions on lessons of human rights violations in Philippine history, particularly during the martial law regime. Thus, the DepEd and the Commission of Human Rights closely coordinates to ensure that the teachings of martial law atrocities and the lives and sacrifices of human rights violations victims as drawn by history will have its loud place in basic education. Because we believe somehow, some way, this will help shape their future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yolanda Zoraida Rangiris. And now, last but not least, to give us updates on the Memorial Museum project, we would like to call on and please welcome Ms. Yolanda Villanueva Ong.
Well, I hope the PowerPoint works. No? If not, I will do it from the top of my head. Okay. Glad I have cliff notes. Okay. As we have learned today, it is Republic Act 10368 that is being implemented. And in Section 26 of such law, it says that we have to establish a memorial in honor of human rights violations victims, whose names shall be inscribed in the roll of victims. The Section 27 also provides for the creation of the human rights violations victims and the board and the memorial commission led by the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is composed of, there you are. Okay, next slide, please. This formed the Board of Trustees, headed, of course, by the Chair of the Commission of Human Rights and co-chaired by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, and the rest as members. Now, if we are calling them victims in the law, we are actually choosing to make them champions in doing the memorial for them. So in fact, we have a working name for the museum, and we did not want to call it the Martial Law Museum, mainly because we were worried that it might be taken to mean as memorializing martial law. We know that communication sometimes can be very tricky, and as we found out when my namesake Yolanda hit Tacloban, nobody knew what storm surge meant. So this time around, we are being very careful, and we have a working name for the museum, and we are calling it, next slide please, the Freedom Memorial. The Freedom Memorial, thank you. I hope that means you like it. Okay, next slide, please. The Freedom Memorial honors the Filipinos who fought and triumphed against martial law. So they are not victims, they are champions, they are warriors, and they were triumphant over martial law. And if you can see some of the faces, this includes those that are unsung and those that are famous, to name a few. The museum, next slide please. The museum will also strengthen the resolve that never again shall we allow our freedom to be taken, or any form of martial law or a dictatorship will never be imposed on the Filipino people again. And this is the message that the TFM, or the Freedom Memorial, wants to give. And finally, we also want to talk about people power, because if you think about it, the Philippines, the Philippine brand is actually known for people power. And in many ways, it was our gift to the world and has been emulated in many other countries, which is why these are the three biggest highlights in the memorial. But next slide, please. The vision for the Freedom Memorial is as follows. It should be a legacy that is faithful to history. As we know, there are several attempts to revise history. And again, we must make sure that the accuracy and the facts about what really happened in those dark years will not ever be revised, erased, fabricated, or reinvented. As we said, it is recognition for those who fought in the name of freedom. It is also an educational journey, primarily for the youth who until now may not have heard or do not know what really happened during martial law. If you go through the internet, you will find that some netizens even say that those were the best years of government that we've had. That is horrible. So we would like that the Freedom Memorial to educate our youth regarding those years. It is, of course, the symbol of never again shall we let it happen. It is the triumph of the Filipino spirit. And finally, we want to look at it as a social enterprise. What is that? We are trying to create a museum that will not be reliant on any one source of funding. The big challenge of most museums today, especially memory museums, which is what we are going to have, is that they normally lack the funds to continue, to develop, to expand. And therefore, we are treating this as a social enterprise. The mission, again, it cannot be said enough. It's to honor the women and men who gave their lives for human rights, and the freedom of all Filipinos. But here, we want to show the historical context, why it happened, what was the political, economic, and social context in which the dictatorship emerged. Then we want to engrave in the minds of all Filipinos, especially the present and future generations, and also the global community, what the cause and effect was of the Marcos dictatorship and how brutal the martial law regime was. And finally, we want to strengthen the resolve that never again shall it be allowed to happen. So, the breaking news regarding the museum is that there is a proposed site for the Freedom Memorial. It is in the last stages of negotiations with the U.S. government because it is in the Bonifacio Global City. And we are waiting for the deed of donation so that we can finally start it from the ground. And let me just share with you, next slide. Oops, you're going back. Forward, please. We cannot go back. We can only go forward. Okay, this is the proposed site. As you can see, the consular road is there because that is why we are still negotiating it. It's a 10-hectare land in Bonifacio Global City, and 5 hectares of that is dedicated for the Freedom Memorial. And our neighbors, presumably, will be the International School and then the DOF, the Government Center. So, more photos of the lot? Yes. And one more. Yes. Okay. Our aim, since this is all future tense, we haven't started yet, next slide, is to build an edifice that can join the ranks of iconic buildings in the world. And maybe we are being ambitious, but we're thinking Sydney Metropolitan Opera, the Louvre, the Petronas Building, etc. Of course, this will later on be tamped down to what we can afford. All right. So, the proposed, just a general guideline, we are going to try to organize it in 3 major content timelines, and this has structural implication as well. So we will do the pre-martial law era, and then the martial law regime, and then the triumph, end with the triumph of people power, which probably will include up to now, as we sit and celebrate and honor Human Rights Day. In the end, what we want to tell the world is that the Freedom Memorial is testament to the fact that the Filipino will always fight for freedom. We have shown it in history, we are showing it in the future, and as I said, it will never again happen that we will lose our freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Yolanda Ong. Well, yes. At least we have a kinder Yolanda in our midst.
Yes, definitely.
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 You know what, Attorney Bai? Speaking of typhoons, no? Because my daughter works for Project NOAA, and she said, Papa, it's not actually Typhoon Ruby. The real name, which was actually on the list, was Typhoon Hagupit. No, Rubayron.
Oh! Oh, it's a good thing they changed it. Otherwise, it would have been worse.
Okay, anyway, so let's do a recap of what has already happened.
Okay.
No? For those who have arrived late and decided to come just for the snacks. No, just a joke. Okay, so we had a presentation from the chair, Eta Rosales, on 50,000 reasons to end impunity. Now, she was referring to the 50,000 applications.
Yes.
So it's a good thing that you already applied, attorney. Kasi kung hindi, 49,990, parang hindi magandang pakinggan. It's not, anyway. So next, we heard Chairperson Lina Sarmiento, where she did a status report on the reparations and recognition of the martial law applications, no? And then we had a series of presentations on the memorialization coming from the retired Director Medua of the National Archives, from the Department of Education, okay, and then from the Memorial Museum.
And now, friends, it is time to pay tribute to all individuals and organizations working to promote and protect human rights. Oftentimes, they themselves are exposed to all manner of risks. Many have offered their lives just so freedom can thrive. This morning, we are very blessed to have with us a noted musician and activist whose voice stirs intense passion for humanity. Friends, let us give a hand for Ms. Bayan Barrios.
Good morning. My turn to sing. I've heard a lot of speeches. Laya. Bawat nilikha sa maliwanag, kung may karapatang huminga ng malaya, malayang kaisipan, malayang damdamin, biyayang ibinigay ng bathala. Magmula noong unang kaarawan, tayo'y isinilang, kakambal ay kalayaan, malayang kaisipan, malayang damdamin, biyayang ibinigay ng bathala. Singlaya ng ihip ng hangin, singlaya ng agila sa himpapawid, singlaya ng agos ng batik, singlaya ng igat sa karagatan, singlaya ng pitik ng puso, singlaya ng pagdaloy ng dugo sa kaugatan. Buhay ay may saysay sa maliwanag, may kasarinlan at kalayaan.
one more? Sige.
Nakita mo na ba ang mga bagay na dapat mong makita? Nagawa mo na ba ang mga bagay na dapat mong ginawa? Kalaga ng tali sa paa, imulat ng iyong mga mata. Kay sarap ng buhay lalo na't alam mo kung saan papunta. May mga taong bulag kahit dilat ang mata. May mga taong tinatalian sariling kamay at paa. Problema ay tinatalikdan, salamin sa mata'y hindi makita. Kay sarap ng umaga, lalo na't ika'y gising. Tanghali maligaya kung ika'y may makakain. Ang gabi ay mapayapa kung mahal sa buhay ay kapiling. Kay sarap ng buhay lalo na't alam mo kung saan papunta. Gising na kaibigan ko, ganda ng buhay ay nasa sayo. Ang oras daw ay ginto, kinakalawang lang pag ginamit mo. Kailan ka pa magbabago? Kailan ka pa matututo? Ang lahat ng ilog sa dagat patungo, buksan ng isipan at mararating mo. Kay ganda ng buhay sa mundo. Nakita mo na ba ang mga bagay na dapat mo makita? Nagawa mo na ba ang mga bagay na dapat mong ginawa? Kalaga ng tali sa paa, imulat ng iyong mga mata. Kay sarap ng buhay lalo na't alam mo kung saan papunta. Kay sarap ng buhay lalo na't alam mo kung saan papunta. Kay sarap ng buhay lalo na't alam mo kung saan papunta.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Bayang Barrios. Sayang, wala nang iba, no? Anyway, how we miss the days when we sing in the streets, no? So at this point, I would like to go to the highlight of our occasion, which is the keynote message. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to confer with our keynote speaker this morning, and he said, can we just focus on the executive secretary who will actually be doing the keynote speech, because he was given the role of welcoming us, no? But it appears, sir, that the fates have destined that you be thrust into this limelight. So I'm pleased to call on stage the Deputy Executive Secretary for General Administration, as well as the Overseer for the work of the Presidential Human Rights Committee, as well as its Secretariat. So I'm proud to call on stage my boss, Deputy Executive Secretary Chofilo S. Pilando Jr.
Well, good morning. Well, actually, I won't be the keynote speaker. I will just be reading the message of the President for this occasion. I am honored to speak on behalf of President Benigno Aquino today, who for pressing reasons cannot join us this morning. Allow me to share with you his message for this occasion. Our culture is one that instills in our youth the value of human rights. As at an early age, all of us exposed to key practices in relating to one another, respect the other, abide by the rules, and mindful of the welfare of our fellow men in whatever we do today. As we commemorate the 66th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, we recognize the importance of instilling this value to every citizen. During the Marcos dictatorship, such principles of decency and humanity were undermined. My own father, seen as the key opponent of the Marcos regime, was tried by a court for trump-up charges. He was eventually incarcerated in an unjust manner. His rights were close to none, and he was not the only case. During that time, all across the nation, human rights abuses were carried out by a government that had vowed to protect its citizenry. Such violations would stoke the flames of dissent against the dictator's rule. That movement of protest that would culminate in what is considered by some accounts as one of the most peaceful revolutions in history, and that is the EDSA People Power Revolution. My mother would inherit the mantle of leadership in the wake of my father's assassination, and many would work with her in rebuilding the institutions of democracy that were damaged after decades of authoritarian rule. Just as we are aware of the narrative that comes with the restoration of our democracy, we too must be aware of the responsibilities entrusted upon us by that generation that had fought, marched, and died for our freedom. Today, as we gather, we thus pledge to redouble our efforts to defend the dignity and rights of our fellow men. Our administration's position has always been very clear. Every single violation of human rights is one too many, and it is thus incumbent upon government to ensure that our countrymen receive the protection that is due them, one that enables them to live truly productive and dignified lives. It is for this reason that we signed a law that criminalizes the involuntary and enforced disappearance of a person. We likewise enacted into law Republic Act number 10368, which recognizes the narratives of suffering of the many victims and survivors during the martial law period. Together with this, we initiated the creation of a Human Rights Victims Claims Board, which affords state compensation to the victims of the dictator. We have not only worked towards bringing justice to the wronged, we are also making sure that violations are not repeated or perpetuated. Our uniformed services, aware that the moral high ground is the terrain that would yield the best results as regards maintaining their image as protectors of our people, have set up mechanisms for issues concerning human rights abuses. We also instructed our Department of Justice to form a task force that will review all reported and unresolved cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. All our efforts present a resounding message. Ours is a society that is committed to justice in all fronts. Ours is a nation that values the dignity of every human being. Ours is an administration that considers human rights a vital cornerstone in the agenda of inclusiveness. It has often been said numerous times that the world is in a constant state of flux and uncertainty abounds. Despite the tremendous advances in civil safety and efforts to protect human rights, strife continues in many areas of this place and around the world. If there's anything that is certain, anything that should unite our communities further, it is giving importance to the fundamental rights of the individual. This is an imperative that we should work towards if we are able to ensure the future generations that will come after us. Thank you and good day.
Maraming salamat po, Deputy Executive Secretary Teofilo Pilando. We are very grateful to you for reaffirming President Aquino's commitment to human rights during his term. And thank you for joining us to represent the President despite your very busy schedule. And that, friends, ladies and gentlemen, ends Ulat sa Bayan and International Human Rights Day Celebration 2014.
Yes. Snacks will be served outside.
Thank you.